Alabama, and West Central Georgia. Be sure to like and follow us on YouTube and Facebook, and stay tuned for even more amazing ways we will be bringing Georgia-Alabama sports live to you this upcoming season. We can't wait to come see you next. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to a special edition of the Georgia-Alabama Sports Live Show. Normally we do this we have the recap on Saturday mornings, and then we preview the next week on Sunday night, but we had such a busy week. College football started, and today's Labor Day, so we thought, why not just make it a Labor Day special for this week alone, and we'll have recap and preview on today's show. I'm Thrift Behringer, and this is my co-host and partner in crime, Rich Holdridge.
Hey, what's going on, Thrift?
We had a great week of high school athletics being streamed on Georgia-Alabama Sports Live, presented by, this show is, Pepsi, Buffalo Rock, and, of course, Glenn Smith Chevrolet and GMC. Also, thank you to Zaxby's, who is a sponsor for this show, and Alex Quinney Allstate Agency, who gives us the Alex Quinney Allstate Good Hands Player of the Game every stream that we do. Last week, Richard, we didn't do a triple header. We did a double header, and we were at Harris County Carver and Eufaula Russell County. But before we get into those games, I want to talk specifically about game day. I remember this was your brainchild. I'm always going to give you credit for it, Richard. We started last year, just something simple, and the first one was Pacelli and Glenwood, which was a lot of fun. Yeah. To see what happened this past Friday, in which we had student section, we had signs, we had the band, the cheerleaders. It felt like a legitimate college game day, but on the high school level. It was also our most viewed game day. It was an incredible experience. Thank you to producer Brandon and Bain for being there. Thank you to Tim Green being the guest picker. Thank you to Michael Bensko of Buffalo Rock for also coming on. Richard, just an incredible atmosphere that set the stage for what was going to be a great game that night.
We took high school game day to the next level, especially having the fans with the signs in the background. We had the marching band, we had the cheerleaders, and it really sets the tone for the entire evening of some great high school football action. And I also, like when I watch college game day, I get hyped up about all these matchups. We wanted to just have that same experience, right, to just talk up these incredible matchups. And I love the pick segment. I mean, just with having the graphics on there and us picking, and we can get through some of our picks. I actually go back and watch, and I admit, some of the picks I end up getting wrong. But,
yeah, same with me. So it shows you that even experts get things wrong. But they do it big in the county, and we appreciate them. We got another great place. We're going to be doing game day this week as we continue that tour throughout the entire regular season of high school football. But we also ended the month of August, and I looked at it. We did over 50 broadcasts just in the first month of the sports season, because, the sports calendar year isn't January to December. It's August to May, especially in the high school ranks, because that's when school starts in August and it ends in May. And Richard, we had a great first month being able to do Muskogee County, Calvary, Glenwood, Pacelli. We even got a Brookstone game on there. Of course, Harris County, Russell County, Smith Station, and then we're going to even get Central this upcoming month. All the teams that we cover in our area. It was just an incredible month. And thank you to my incredible team, Chris Gates, one of the co-founders of Georgia-Alabama Sports Live, Toygar Isla, Brandon Swobel, Bain Robertson. Those are the producers, behind-the-scene guys that allow us to have elite-level production. Of course, the on-air talent, yourself, Rick Beach of Kudzu Sports, who now is a part of Georgia-Alabama Sports Live, Noah Shelton, Mike Peacock, just a great team to be able to do as many things as we do, to broadcast that many events in just 1 month alone. It was just an incredible first August, and we're looking forward to what September has in store for us.
So many great matchups that we've been able to call, not just on Friday nights, but on Thursday night. And Thrift,
Yeah.
I do want to say something because I was listening to the broadcast. Kendrick was hosting Crawford County, and Noah Shelton.
Who's going to be our Thursday night broadcaster from now on.
That's what I was thinking. Like, now Noah Shelton is going to be the voice of Thursday night football. I mean, that was an incredible call on the kickoff return for a touchdown for Kendrick. And they did lose the game, but I thought it was great that we were able to be there at Kinnett Stadium to support the Kendrick Cherokees and what Coach Mayo is trying to build over there at Kendrick.
All right, let's go ahead as you see Chris throwing up the highlights right now or about to throw up the highlights for the first game that we did. We talked about game day in Harris County and Carver. If you coming into this game, we hyped it up as it should be. Both teams are ranked top in the state, like Max Preps or whatever rankings you look at. Harris County's top 10 in 4A, Carver's top 5, top 10 in 2A. But in our ratings poll, we had number 2 Harris County taking on number 3 Carver, and it lived up to the hype. Rand Ogletree is one of the best athletes and best players in our area. You're seeing here the diving catch that he made. He had close to 100 yards receiving. He had close to 100 yards rushing. And he also had a couple passes, too. The guy is literally a do-it-all, and he's going to the next level. He's already getting looked at by Appalachian State. I think even bigger. I'm thinking more SEC. This guy is incredible. But more impressively, in my opinion, because I expected Rand to do his thing, because that guy has been doing his thing for the last 3 weeks. Trotter Teasley, the quarterback, Richard, had several throws that allowed Harris County to score a touchdown. In that opening drive, he threw a nice drop in the bucket pass to Rand Ogletree that got him up 6-0. And then you see right here, he throws another incredible deep pass. Look at the touch on this ball and a great effort.
Right in the back.
And eventually, Rand Ogletree was able to get stopped right at the 3, and then they were able to score and go up 12-0. So I was impressed by Trotter Teasley and the management that he did at the quarterback position. Carver did make a comeback. They have a ton of athletes. Jacoby Castellan is one of the fastest guys in our area, and he literally went past everyone on that Harris County defense. But a couple of takeaways. One, Carver struggled offensively, and you've seen that these last several weeks. Just the explosive plays have been lack thereof. Yeah, you see the one right here, but that was the only touchdown Carver was able to score. I think a lot of that had to do with D-Rock Brooks and that Harris County defense. Richard, lights out. And I told you, if you asked me the first 3 weeks of the season, who's done the best assistant coaching job out of all the schools we cover, I got to say D-Rock Brooks in Harris County. He held Troup County's high-scoring, high-flying offense to 17. He held Manchester to only 9 points. Or excuse me, not 9 points. Now I lost my train of thought. There we go. So I'll have to pull up what their score was, but I know it was low scoring in the Manchester game, and you would think that I would already know that. And then they also held Carver to 6 points as well. So I was really impressed with what Harris County was able to do against this Carver team. It was a defensive battle. Both teams got elite defenses. Carver did a good job, too, holding Harris County at bay. Only 3 points were scored in the entire second half. But what a job, and it was 16-8 in that Manchester game. Thank you, Richard. I knew it was single digits. So 2 of the 3 games that Harris County has played, single digits. This defense is one of the best defenses in the state, and it's because of D-Rock Brooks. Impressive win for Harris County. Carver has everything they have in front of them. Remember, Harris County is a 4A school. They're not going to have to face them in the playoffs. But there's obviously things they want to improve on, and offensively they want to be able to score more points, obviously, as they're averaging about now between this game, the 20-point game against Whitewater, and then the 17 points they had against Spencer. Richard, that's about 43 points they scored in 3 weeks. That's less than 15 points a game. Now, they are 2-1, but I know Coach Pierre Coffey wants his team to be more electric and have more explosive plays, especially against high-level competition later on in the playoffs. But talk about what you saw from Harris County and Carver.
Well, witnessing this matchup, I saw two great teams. One is just in 2A. Carver is going to be fine. There's some things they got to clean up on offense.
Yeah.
But Carver is going to have a bye this week. And then in 2 weeks, they'll play another 4A school, the Northside Patriots. So what I'm thinking about is that Harris County is on pace to make history. They're 3-0. They go on the road against Doherty, and then they go on the road against Jonesboro. They have a chance to become 5-0, which has never happened in the history of the school. And also, I trust the source of Matt Stewart from GPB Sports. He's got Harris County ranked 7th in his latest poll in 4A. And you got to remember, there's a lot of talented 4A teams like Cass.
Yeah.
You have Benedictine. I mean, you've got Perry, the defending champions. So Harris County is in that mix.
And just in their region alone,
Yeah.
Central of Carrollton,
Central of Carrollton,
Sars
yeah.
Mills, Northside. I mean,
Forgot about that.
I mean, it's an incredible region, but
Yeah.
I'm with you. Harris County, they approved everyone wrong that thought they were a one-hit wonder. They are not.
No.
Tommy Watson has built a team predicated on elite offensive line play. As a former offensive line coach and offensive lineman, you knew that was going to be given.
Yeah.
Defensive line led by Bishop Adams, Josh Jones. That defense is lights out, and it's the same formula as last year. Run the football, get into the playmakers' hands like Rand Ogletree on offense, and then play game management with the quarterback and Trotter Teasley. And you're seeing, look at Rand Ogletree just running through a guy against Shreve County. I mean, when you got him, you got Josh Jones, you got Roderick Robinson. I mean, these guys give them the ability to score enough points on offense and then defense. It's like that old school Alabama mentality I'm seeing with Nick Saban. You know, ground and pound and then play elite defense and shut people out. But great job by Harris County. Great game, great atmosphere. Carver, again, you should not be holding your head down too low. You still have everything in front of you. You got a bye this week. You got Northside the next week, and then you go into region play. And I think they're going to be fine. By the end of the season, you're going to see Coach Pierre Coffey's team top 10 in the state for sure. But glad that we were able to be there. And then, Richard, you were at the other game that we did, which was Russell County and Eufaula.
That was an exciting game, too. And Russell County, after beating Carroll 32-0, was facing a Eufaula team that went to the semifinals last year in 5A. However, they did lose a lot of seniors from last year's team. Eufaula, Russell County used to be region rivals. This was a back-and-forth game. Eufaula scored first on just a deflection by the quarterback, Ty McCoy. And it was one of those plays where me and Mike Peacock on the broadcast were shocked that he even caught it. And then, as you could see on this play, look at this deflection. And then the receiver, number 0, which I had him on my roster, scores the touchdown there. That was just an incredible play. I know that on the broadcast, me and Mike got excited. And then Russell County on the next possession, Devin Brown, which was our All-State player of the game because he did have 3 touchdowns in the game. He ran the kickoff return back for a touchdown to make it 7-7. As you could see here, I mean, he had nothing but open space. He makes the cut, turns up the field using his speed. I do have a little story about Devin Brown. He's a senior running back under Coach Dylan Griggs' offense. He stayed patient. He backed up Drew Pickett in 2022. He backed up Kelston Tarver last year. And so staying with the system, he is now the featured back, and Coach Griggs trusts him, and he did get a lot of yards, including 3 touchdown passes. And Bryson Riggins, he has lived up to the hype. He is a very special quarterback who can throw the football, and he's got a good touch on the football. He was utilizing his receivers, Denver Harper and Jamari Burnett. The problem with Russell County's their defense could not get stops when it mattered the most. Eufaula looked like it was going to be a track meet because this was 21-21.
Right.
Eufaula made the adjustments in that second half. First of all, they owned time of possession in the second half. That wore down the Russell County defense. And so when you wear down a defense, it gives your defense fresh legs. And so they were in coverage. Bryson Riggins could not throw the football like he could in the first half because they were in coverage and they were making the necessary stops and they were getting to the quarterback. Bryson Riggins was under pressure, under duress.
Well, Eufaula's a great team too.
Yeah,
Richard.
you got to give credit to Eufaula. I mean, they were the more desperate team. They lost to Booker T. Washington in week 1. And I know that Russell County, after beating Carroll in week 1, there was just a lot of hype and a lot of fans were there, and by both schools. It was a great atmosphere, a great football game. And I know the score, 34-21, doesn't tell you how great of a football game it was. I mean, this could have easily been a one-score game.
No doubt.
But,
By the way, DJ Jones was there, and his lovely wife, Candy Lowe Jones, is cousins with the quarterback, Riggins. So they were there supporting him. And Russell County's got everything in front of them. They'll be fine. I think Dylan Griggs and Russell County will make the playoffs this year. I know you were high on them. But Eufaula was a tough task. And
Absolutely.
Great call by you and Mike Peacock. You can go watch that replay on our Facebook page and, of course, on our YouTube channel. They got Wetumpka next week, then at Percy Julian. Then they got back-to-back home games against Park Crossing and Valley, which, Richard, we were there for that Valley game last year.
That's right.
And speaking of Valley, they laid the wood to a local team. We'll get into that in just a moment. But we may be at the Valley-Russell County game. So Russell County will be back again. And I promise you, we're going to be at a game in which you win. I hope you don't think we are the bad luck. All right, Chris, if you don't mind throwing up the scores and from recap from week 3. And while he's doing that, on Thursday, you had Lovett take care of business against Spencer. Just not a great showing for Coach Kegler's team. They need to regroup. They take on Griffin. I think that's a good test for them to dominate and get back to 500. They're 1-2 right now. And then Crawford County beating Kendrick. Noah Shelton was on the call for that, 24-7, losing that one. Coach Mayo and Kendrick, I still think they get 3 to 4 wins this year.
Right.
But Crawford County just was too much for them in that second half. Moving on to the rest of the games on Friday, we'll hit them quickly. Chatco beat Jordan 54-7. Congratulations to Bruce Figgins getting his first win of his coaching career at the expense of our guy Antonio McDaniels from Jordan, but great win. This is where me and you both had to eat crow. Pacelli beat the defending state champions FPD 18-6. Yeah. Big time win for Coach Beck and Coach Jones from Pacelli. We'll be there this Friday, but great win for the Pacelli Vikings. They needed it. They were 0-2. They could not go 0-3 if they wanted to make the playoffs this year, and they go to 18-6. And then Northside took care of region rival from last year. Not the same region this year, but the previous couple years. They beat Northgate 22-0. That matchup against Carver is looming. Ooh. But the one I'm really looking forward to, because we could have 2 undefeated teams, Harris County and Northside. They're rivals in basketball. They're rivals in softball. And, of course, they are rivals in football. Cannot wait for that one.
Yeah, and then we also had Shaw, who played a very rare home game at Otis Spencer Stadium. They were taking on a very tough private school in Athens Academy. I mean, this was just a tough matchup. Athens Academy, we know how good they play football in Athens. You got Prince Avenue Christian. You got Athens Academy. 48-14, they dropped that contest.
Tough loss for Coach Gardner, for sure.
They'll go on a bye, but they'll play Hardaway in a couple of weeks. Mount DeSales ends up beating Calvary 7-6 in Mount DeSales. I saw some improvement after losing 56-0 to Stratford Academy. Coach Brunson and his team has a chance to win this game. The defense played solid, but just losing this game like that, it was a game that could have easily won. Getting Coach Brunson's
I want to
first
say
win.
this too. Obviously, Calvary's having a tough time in the transition with the GIAA as of right now. Okay, they lost to Terrell, who wasn't the GIAA. They played a really good Stratford team. That team may win state this year, so
right.
I'm not going to hold that against them. And then Mount DeSales, just the balls are not bouncing their way right now. But I know Coach Brunson, I know Steve Smith, and I know that Calvary program, what they're built off of under Coach Brunson. They're not going to let this deter them. No. And they're going to eventually, and they got a game against Flint River coming up. They also got a game against Skipstone coming up at home. We're going to be doing both of those. I expect them to get on the right track against those teams. And then I'm going to talk about this one, Richard, because Glenwood winning 49-22 over Elba. Wow.
Unbelievable.
Richard, Glenwood, I said it, and now Noah Shelton's eating crow, and you're having to eat crow too at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
When we did our predictions, I said Glenwood's going 7-3, 8-2. And right now, it looks like that's exactly what's going to be happening. 49-22, big-time win over Elba.
I predicted that Glenwood was going to go 5-5, and the reason why is I looked at the public schools in Alabama and how talented they were. Elba went to the Final Four last year. They have the number one running back in the entire state of Alabama, Alvin Henderson, that's going to Auburn. And Glenwood punched him in the mouth on the road.
Unreal.
And shut down Alvin Henderson, put a 49 on the board. And now I'm starting to think not only is Glenwood going to make the playoffs in 3A, they could be a state title contender. Because you look at the landscape of 3A, they take on Comer next week on the road.
Yep.
You know Lee Scott Academy is going to be tough.
And that's at home. They got
that's gonna be at home.
Jonesburg at home. They got some tough games coming up, but I think they have everything in front of them to be a contender. I think that's a good point. I don't think that's a hot take, Richard.
No, and by the way, Lee Scott Academy did beat Lochapoka. And I do want to say something because I'm going to call out the Alabama Riders for not giving a single vote to Glenwood or Lee Scott in their preseason 3A poll. I guess they're not paying attention to the AISA.
No, they're not. And guess what? We don't care because the only poll you should care about is the Georgia Alabama Sports Live ratings poll.
There you go.
Randolph Clay beat Columbus 30-8. Here's where it really is on a personal level. I really believe in Ryan McKenzie of Hardaway.
Yes.
He had it was tough last year. Freshman quarterback, no games were close, 0-10. They almost won last week. We were there for that against Booker T. Washington. And then they go on the road and beat Greenville to get his first win as a Hardaway coach. I got to clap it up. Congratulations. Big-time win for Hardaway. I still think they're going to get to 4 or 5 wins. I think they're going to be a surprise in that region. That is all 7 of the 8 Muskogee County schools. But incredible win for the Hardaway Hawks and Ryan McKenzie. Central dominated Lutheran North 30-12. And then, Richard, I'll let you say this next one because I don't think it's a great look for a 7A school to lose to a team that Glenwood just beat last week, but I'll let you go ahead and say it.
Yeah, Valley ends up defeating Smith Station 36-8 at Ram Stadium, and Smith Station's in trouble.
Yeah.
Smith Station's 0-2. They're getting ready for the backyard brawl against Central, and I just it's a complete mismatch. This once was a rivalry. When you beat a team 10 straight years and you haven't won in a decade, it's not a rivalry anymore. No. And I think that Smith Station, if you look at their schedule, they are a 7A school in Alabama. They need to be beating a 2A school in Georgia. They have got to beat a 5A school in Alabama. You got to beat those teams, and they don't even look competitive. Yeah, they looked a little competitive in the Shaw game, but you lose 36-8 to a 5A school that just lost to a team that was in the AISA last year.
Embarrassing.
Yeah.
And by the way, we will be for the backyard brawl because I don't think it's going to be a competitive game. I just would like to see Central and have them on Georgia Alabama
It's an early
Sports
opportunity
Live.
to have Central on Georgia Alabama Sports
So
Live.
we will be there for that. And Flint River, Richard couldn't stand it. He had to shout out Joe Howard. They beat Skipstone, the defending Gap state champion last year, who beat Calvary on that heartbreaking fashion. They took care of business, winning 27-6.
3-0. Big shout out to Joe Howard, the voice of the Flint River Wildcats. He's a big supporter of the show, and I wanted to throw that in there. I mean, there were some other games. Auburn beat Festivia Hills. Opelika beat Callaway. LaGrange lost to a Sandy Creek team, 27-7. Yeah. That was a tough loss for LaGrange. But yeah, we some of the teams are on a bye, so I wanted to make sure to throw in that Flint River score.
All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back from break, it's time for week 4 now. Georgia Alabama Sports Live ratings poll. Do not go anywhere. It's time to ruffle some feathers. We're presented by Glenn Smith Chevrolet, GMC, Pepsi, Zaxby's. Georgia Alabama Sports Live Show. We'll be right back after this.
Truckloads of fresh inventory are rolling into Glenn Smith Chevrolet in Opelika. Check out the powerful new Chevrolet Silverado 4-wheel drive crew cabs, discounted up to $13,750 off. Chevy Equinox with discounts up to $6,000 off. And listen to this, 2024 Chevy Blazer EV, as low as $295 a month. Brand new Chevy Blazer EV, 24 months lease, just $295 a month.
Get ready to smile.
Georgia Alabama Sports Live wants to say thank you to one of our presenting sponsors, Buffalo Rock, and their partnership with everything that we do. And without business like Buffalo Rock, we wouldn't be able to go cover softball, volleyball games, every type of high school sport you can think of, local college games, and professional. So thank you to those businesses that support us, and specifically Buffalo Rock. And next time you're watching a Georgia-Alabama Sports Live broadcast after a nice long day, why not enjoy it with a nice, refreshing sorry? The best lemon lime soda around. Thank you to Sorry and Buffalo Rock for our partnership on Georgia-Alabama Sports Live. Welcome back to the Georgia-Alabama Sports Live show presented by Glenn Smith Chevrolet and GMC Pepsi. And we have our ratings poll. So how we do our ratings poll, I want people to understand. We only do the 16 teams that we cover. That's 8 Muskogee County. That's Calvary, Brookstone, Pacelli, and Glenwood. And that's Harris County. Central and Smith Station as well. Those are the 16 schools that are in it. We don't add Valley. Oh, and Russell County too. We don't have Valley. We don't have, teams outside like Auburn, Opelika. We're not adding them yet. We're just doing the schools that we know we're going to stream at least once this year. So when we do our poll, we also know head-to-head, some teams would beat other teams. We don't do it head-to-head. We base it off of what's the chance of you winning in your classification or league. How good is your strength of schedule compared to everyone else in your league, and your roster compared to everyone else in your league? That's how we do our ratings. And then if all else fails, we do head-to-head. If we have to, we need a tiebreaker. So let's start at number 10. Welcome them back in the poll with a big win over FPD. Number 10, the Pacelli Vikings.
Well deserved to get back into our ratings. 0-2. I just didn't know what this identity was for this Pacelli team. But when I got to thinking, when we both picked FPD to win, I guess that Coach Dwight Jones watches High School Game Day because we just gave him bulletin board material.
And I think we just gave bulletin board material to Joseph Kegler and Spencer, which I'm okay with doing because I want them to win every game that they can. But Spencer comes in at number 9. We actually have Hardaway at number 8. Now, I went with Richard's way of thinking. I was almost ready to just let's put Spencer at 8. But Spencer, remember, their first game was forfeited. They have not won a game technically on the field yet. That was a forfeit, but they are 1-2. Hardaway getting that big win, and I honestly think they should have beat. Pass interference wasn't called against Booker T. Washington. They could be 2-1 right now. I got Hardaway at 8 and Spencer at 9. And then we got Russell County at number 7.
Well, Hardaway and Spencer will play each other later on in the season. That's why I'm excited about all these region matchups in Columbus. And Russell County, I still think that they're a good team. They just lost to a very good Eufaula team. And we'll see how they do against Wetumpka on the road. I think that when you get the quarterback right, you got Bryson Riggins, who's a very talented quarterback. He just makes your offense just more explosive. They can do what they want to do on offense. I just think that they got to clean up some things on defense. I mean, Opelika was a very hard team to stop. I mean, you shut out your opponent week 1, and Eufaula was a hard team to stop, and Eufaula put up 34 points against Russell County in week 2.
Moving on now to number 6, the Brookstone Cougars. They didn't play a game this past week. They were trying to move it up. They were going to start at 4 against Mount Vernon, but because of weather, they just decided to cancel the game.
Right.
So Brookstone will be 1-1. They lost to Valwood. They got a big one coming up this week, but Brookstone stays at number 6.
Yeah, Brookstone takes on FPD next week, which is a rematch of the GIAA 4A state championship.
And I think they have that they've been having that on their mind since last year.
They really have. They've penciled that. So Mount Vernon, the reason why they didn't make this game up, which I thought they were going to make it up maybe on Saturday, is because they don't have lights in the stadium, and that's why it was moved to 4 in the afternoon. But because of inclement weather, they couldn't, like storm systems come and go after a couple of hours. They couldn't get the game in because it was just too late, and the game was not played because of darkness.
Moving on from number 6 to number 5, and I was close to putting them up. And by the way, Carver should be 2-1, so we'll have to fix those ratings on there. They are not undefeated, so bear in mind that is on there right now. But they are 2-1. But even so, I'm going to keep Glenwood at number 5 as they go to 2-0 on the season. I'm not ready to put them ahead of Carver because Carver lost to a team that is ranked number 2 in our ratings poll. But big-time win against Elba. You talked about it. They have one of the best running backs in the country, and he's going to Auburn next year. Definitely one of the best running backs in the state of Alabama. So Glenwood goes to 2-0. Got a big one against B.B. Comer on the road, and then they're back at home next week. Glenwood at number 5.
Yeah, Glenwood will be back at the Swamp taking on Childersburg, and then they'll be on the road taking on a Beulah Bobcats team that's 2-0. They beat Lynette. And so this could be a possible, future region rival that, we could see just a showdown between these two teams. You also have Lee Scott that's also in the mix. I mean, they beat Lochapoka. I mean, they'll face Randolph County. I'm a firm believer that Glenwood's going to make the playoffs, but they could also compete at 3A as well for a possible state championship, which, by the way, in the AHSAA playoffs, the path is just a little bit longer. In the AISA, you only play 3 games to win the championship. In the AHSAA, you play a little bit more.
Right. All right, so moving on from number 5 to number 4, Carver, tough loss against Harris County. Again, not ready to drop them against Glenwood yet. And put Glenwood at number 4. Maybe if they lose again and Glenwood keeps their winning ways, I can see that happening. But Carver will stay at number 4, and I think you're going to use this bye to regroup themselves, get back to where they need to be because they got another one. So they go from Harris County to the north side next week. So they need this bye, and I know Coach Coffey will get these guys rejuvenated for that big-time game. Number 3 is the Northside Patriots. They come in undefeated, beating Northgate. They already used their bye for the season. They got a big game coming up against Monroe this Friday night, but Northside comes in at number 3, Carver 4.
Yeah, we moved Northside up there because, they're still undefeated. They've had 2 convincing wins so far. It is not just the passing of Caden Clay. It's the all-world back who can do it all. He can catch in the backfield, and he can also run the football, and that's Kingston Rivers. He's their leading receiver. He's their top rusher as well. I mean, you still have Jay Jackson in the backfield, but Kingston Rivers has been just electric. He has just been just the ultimate offensive weapon for Caden Clay. And you got to really give credit to the defense as well for shutting out a Northgate team that actually was the number 2 seed last year. Northside went up to Northgate last year and lost that game. And so the revenge factor was on their mind, but they were able to get the shutout.
Yeah, they were. So moving on from Northside to now Harris County. They're the surprise team, and they're undefeated, and they're going to be favored in a lot of their games for the rest of the season. Big win against Carver, big win against Troup County and Manchester. You could not pick a bigger 3 wins out of anybody that's played, and that includes Central, who played a team from Miami and Lutheran North. I think Harris County's got the best 3 wins of this early in this season. They come in at number 2.
Yeah, the reason why we have Harris County number 2, they have a better resume than Central. I mean, Central played Pinson Valley, who had a losing record last year, didn't even make the playoffs. Took on a Lutheran North team we don't really know anything about. We just know they won 6 titles in Missouri. But Central, 2-0, and the reason why Central's there, because the entire country thinks Central is the 17th best team in the entire country. So,
Right, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, of course.
And speaking of Central, they are undefeated. They are 2-0, and I mean, they're loaded, and I think they're the favorite in 7A to win it all this year. They're going to stay number 1 until they lose a game, and even if they lose a game like to an IMG, it's going to be hard for me to push them down. But Central comes in at number 1. They are the best team in our area, and they are they're the cream of the crop.
Thrift, I do have a question for you. You put Central and Harris County on a neutral field. So let's say they're going to play at A.J. McClung or Otis Spencer. How's that matchup going?
I'm going Central in a close-scoring game. I think it'll be low-scoring.
I think it'd be low-scoring because Harris
County's
County's
28
defense.
to 14. I think Harris County's defense would keep that offense that scores a lot of points at bay to an extent. But Harris County's offense on the flip side, I think playing against the elite level of Central. Remember, who's on Central's coaching staff, by the way?
The Nighthawk.
The Nighthawk. So that cornerbacks, I mean, they would know they would have to stop Rand Ogletree. I'd still take Central, but it would be a closely contested game. Here is our Week 4 ratings poll on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. Looking forward to seeing all these teams play again this upcoming week. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to now preview where we're going to be this week and who else is playing and where they're going to be. It's the Georgia Alabama Sports Live show. We'll be right back after this.
Now at Glenn Smith GMC in Opelika, the full-size GMC Sierra 4x4 crew cabs discounted up to a giant $15,000 off. GMC Canyons with plenty of power and excellent towing ability, up to $5,000 off. And the roomy and enjoyable compact SUV, the popular GMC Terrains, up to $6,750 off.
Choose from over 500 new and used vehicles on the lot or on the way to Glenn Smith and Opelika. Get ready to smile.
My name is Sergeant Jason Swells, and this is my CVCC story. Class sizes were not too large. The professors in each class had time to talk. It was almost like a one-on-one experience. One of my daughters is a student at CVCC right now. She's going through the arts program. I've got another son who's right behind her who's about to graduate school, and he's already talking about going to CV, and he's ready for it. CVCC did prepare me for my career. They made sure you knew the subject before you walked out of the class, before you took the test. They dedicated 100% of themselves to it. It was a great experience, and I could say for anybody who's deciding or thinking about going into criminal justice, CVCC got my vote all day long because they're on top of their game.
Welcome back to the show, everyone, here on Georgia Alabama Sports Live, and we got a great slate. Triple header again. We got Stone Mountain at Pacelli. That's going to be the host of High School Game Day. Cannot wait to be back at Diamond Field, back at the land, as Corey Black likes to say. By the way, he's probably going to be our guest picker. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. I don't think anyone will be surprised if Corey Black's picking games with us.
Not at all.
We got Harris County at Daugherty. We're going on the road. Harris County's hot. They want us to go do it. Rick Beach and Brandon and Swobel and Bain, they want to go there. I said, mate, more power to you. Go cover Harris County taking on Daugherty. And then, Richard, me and you will be at the backyard brawl. It's Central. It's Smith Station, 8 o'clock. Cannot wait. You see the slate. Triple header, live and local. Georgia Alabama Sports Live. Cannot wait to do all these games. No Thursday night games because Muskogee County is the only
the only teams are on the bye.
A lot of them on the bye, and then Muskogee County is the only school district that plays on Thursdays of the teams we cover. So there's no Thursday night games this week, and we will have those 3 games on Georgia Alabama Sports Live.
I'm really looking forward to seeing Central and Smith Station. The backyard brawl, 4 miles of Opelika Road separate these two schools. Smith Station has not beaten Central in over a decade. You look at the matchup. I know that Smith Station, they want this game bad. I mean, they'll play really hard. You can throw out the records whenever they play because Smith Station. I don't know what's happened to Smith Station the first 2 weeks. Those are 2 games they should have won, but they know that they've got this game circled because it's at TC Britton Field, Panther Stadium. The fan base is going to be great for both schools. I mean, we're going to see a packed stadium. Because, the Central fan base is going to be there as well. And I don't think that Central has really been tested so far in the season. They haven't had any adversity. It's because Andrew Alford is an incredible quarterback that, even though Cam Coleman's now playing at Auburn and Dylan Gentry's playing at Auburn, he still has Dalen Upshaw. But they have a very underrated running back in Tristan Williams who can rush for over 100 yards a game.
Yeah.
And Central is absolutely loaded on defense.
The only thing that could happen is potentially, I guess maybe if they, I don't even know. I'm trying to think of some scenario. I'm trying to be positive for Smith Station. How can they keep it close? Maybe in the first half. We're going to stay positive here.
We are.
Because we're broadcasting the game. We want it to be close. We want it to be competitive.
We want it to be a good game.
But you know what? It is what it is. We're just glad that we're able to get both those schools in Alabama. And that game will be presented by Glenn Smith Chevrolet and GMC Pepsi and Zaxby's. And the other 2, Glenn Smith Chevrolet and GMC and Pepsi. All right, take that graphic off, and let's throw up the graphic of all the other games that are happening in our area before we wrap up the show. Like you said, there's a lot of teams in our area that are on bye, specifically in Muskogee County. Northside does take on Monroe, and Spencer takes on Griffin. You got Jordan on the road at Terrell County, and I think that's the only 3 From what I'm seeing, that's the only 3 Muskogee County
Right.
teams because everybody else is on a bye this week.
If you look at the schedule, we threw in some other teams that are outside of the area. How about this game? I just want to shout out this game. Opelika at Auburn. Both teams are 2-0. I know that's probably going to be the WRBL or WTVM game of the week, but I just wanted to make sure to give them some love, even though they're kind of on the outskirts of our covering area. But, Russell County's on the road taking on Wetumpka. Troup County's on the road taking on Whitewater. And you also have Beulah that's 2-0. They're hosting Dadeville. That's a big region opponent as well.
For the private schools, Brookstone's on the road again at FBD. Calvary's at Tatnall Square. And then, of course, we talked about it, Stone Mountain at Pacelli, which we cannot wait to do. Dave Plata will be on the call for Georgia-Alabama Sports Live and BeAViking.com. Cannot wait for that. But Brookstone and Calvary and Glenwood, if you want to consider them to all the private schools that we covered, Glenwood going to Comer. So they're all on the road. We don't have a lot of home games as you look at this schedule right now. Valley, Richard had to throw them in there. He threw Beulah in there. He threw Lee Scott in there because we didn't have many Muskogee County schools. Knowing Richard, he has to find someone to throw in there.
There's one I didn't throw out. The only Thursday night game, but it's kind of outside of our covering areas. I used to work up here. LaGrange is hosting Trinity Christian because Callaway is hosting Cook out of Edel, their first region game.
Well, again, cannot wait to maybe eventually expand our coverage to LaGrange in the Troup County area. Russell County goes on the road to Wetumpka. Let's preview some of the games that we're going to be doing. Obviously, Central, I think if you're Smith Station, if you keep this in within 3 touchdowns, I feel like that's a win.
It is.
If you're Central, it's almost like a loss if you don't win this 45-59 0 after seeing what happened with Valley last week. And I know Central would dominate Valley. Not really a lot to break down with that one. Now, the other game, Stone Mountain, 3A school in the GIAA.
GHSA.
GHSA, excuse me, a 3A school in the GHSA. They're a good program, but I think Pacelli, they'll get back on the right track. Big win against the defending state champions. I think they get to 500 this week. The new quarterback is starting to play well. The offense started moving the football last week, and the defense obviously played lights out. And coach for Pacelli, Dwight Jones, I think they have what it takes to go to 500 and beat Stone Mountain.
Well, you never count out a coach team by Dwight Jones, but you also look at what they lost from last year's team. Their leading rusher, Corvette James, your leading receiver and DB, AZ Justy, Christian Brown. So you look at Pacelli, and they're just going to continue getting better. They're in the GIAA, and they took on. I don't know what happened against Tatnall. They couldn't score anything against Tatnall. By the way, Calvary does play Tatnall this week. But Tatnall is a team that's really good in the GIAA, and so was First Presbyterian Day, and Pacelli ended up beating them. So you got to take the home field advantage of Diamond Field. You got to just take that atmosphere, knowing that they could take on a public school in Stone Mountain and can go toe-to-toe them, and let's see them get the win and go to 500.
Donovan Colvin, who's putting up about 79 rushing yards a game, already got a touchdown, Also, Jason Nelson, the senior running back, who also plays middle linebacker. Both those guys are great. Jarquez Morgan. They got athletes galore.
They do.
Obviously, they are a run-oriented team. They got, and Cameron Carino, they got 3 guys that are averaging over 70 yards rushing a game. So we'll see. And then the quarterback, John Thompson, who, John, last year was only a freshman, played on the basketball team. No, John, very talented, just young, inexperienced, and obviously he's not throwing a lot of passes. He's only attempted 15 passes. The other guy, Jason Davis, has also attempted 18 passes. But Coach Jones, they're more of a triple option type team. They predicate on running the football, playing good great defense. So I expect Colvin and Nelson to have big games against Stone Mountain. Brookstone taking on FPD. I think they're going to go up there and dominate them. And Calvary against Tatnall, that's going to be a tough one. It really is. As much as I want Coach Brunson to win, and as good as I think his program is going to be in the future years, right now that offensive line is just having a tough time blocking. It seems like every game Nate Osborne's running for his life. They're having a tough time getting the playmakers' hands. The defense did good against Mountain DeSales, and losing by 1 point, I know it's heartbreaking, but now they're playing an even better team in Tatnall. Tatnall's just as good as Stratford, if not better. I think Calvert's going to have a tough time this weekend. But then remember, they got Flint River and Skipstone coming up at home. I think that's going to get the crowd motivated and back on the right track. And then Harris County at Daugherty. Daugherty's a good program out of Albany. They made the playoffs last year. This year they are 1-2. Harris County undefeated. I think the last thing Harris County wants to do is to overlook Daugherty, because then they got a bye and then Jonesboro, and they go into that tough region gauntlet of Stars Mills, Jonesboro, Central of Carrollton, and Northside. And all those teams either made it to the state championship last year, were in the Final Four. Now, a lot of those teams are not the same team, and obviously I think Harris County is the cream of the crop in that region, but they need to take care of business against Daugherty. Can go to 4-0, like you said, trying to go to 5-0 first time in school history. First, you got to get through Daugherty. I think they go there, and I honestly think they win the game pretty handily. The last 3 games have been close. I don't think this one's going to be close. I think they win this by 2 or 3 touchdowns.
I do believe that as well. I think Harris County, you've got to win those games that you are expected to win, especially these non-region games, because once you get into region play, it's going to be just a gauntlet of a schedule where they have to face these teams that, like Rick Beach said on his Kutsu Sports Show, there are 5 really talented teams in this region. Only 4 are going to make the playoffs. So it's a margin of error is very slim to none, and so you got to take care of business. And really, this is for school history. You know, we got history on the line. They've never started 5-0. They can get this win against Daugherty, and then they can get the win against Jonesboro. They're 5-0 going into that Northside game.
Yeah, exactly right. And the last game we'll talk about before we wrap up the show, Opelika at Auburn. Man, Riggs, I know they're excited about that. Both teams are
Jacob Goings, the voice of the Auburn Tigers.
Both teams are undefeated right now. This should be a battle of rivals, in which they're about 15 minutes apart. I love nothing more to be able to broadcast this game, but we can't. But we'll be watching and be checking up religiously. But I think Opelika and Auburn, this will decide, both being in the same region, who's going to try to go against Central. I think Auburn's going to be that team, but I would not be surprised Opelika, after moving up a classification last year, beating Auburn, and then we could see Opelika Central be in the game in this region.
I'm going to make a prediction. It's not much of a prediction. It's probably going to happen. They just haven't made it official. This is going to be the WRBL and WTVM high school game of the week. It's Opelika and Auburn, and they're both undefeated. Opelika in the past has lost to a Thompson to start 0-1, but they took care of business against Benjamin Russell, and they actually beat Callaway 48-14. I mean, we know how good Callaway is. I mean, so that gives Opelika a lot of confidence. And Auburn took care of business against North Miami Beach 49-0, and then beat a really good Vestavia Hills team. So I'm really looking forward to seeing this matchup.
All right, Chris, take that graphic off, and we'll wrap up the show with what we got going on this week. Obviously, no coaches shows. I think Calvary Coaches Show is going to drop later tonight. On Georgia Alabama Sports Live, or just dropped tonight, on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. Sorry about that. But tomorrow we got the Glenwood Coach Show live from Mike and Ed's. I'll be hosting that. We also got volleyball, Brookstone and Calvary. Richard, you'll be there for that one. I enjoyed last week being there for Calvary taking on Troup County and winning that best 3 out of 5. So I know Brookstone and Calvary, Coach Holdridge from Brookstone, taking on the Calvary Christian Knights. That should be a great game, and you'll be there for that volleyball match. And then softball, we got Columbus at Shaw. Rick Beach will be on the call with Brandon Swobel. Of course, we got the Harris County Coach Show and the Glenwood Coach Show tomorrow. Wednesday, we got the Muskogee County Coaches Show. We're going to talk with Ryan McKenzie. We're going to talk to Coach Carastori and maybe a few others from Muskogee County on the Muskogee County Coaches Show. Volleyball on Thursday, we got Glenwood home volleyball match against Beulah. Toygar will be there. We won't have a play-by-play, but we will have the broadcast for that. And then, of course, the triple header on Friday. And then we got started all over again for the next week. We'll have our show on Saturday, Richard, which we got a recap show Saturday morning. And then on Sunday, we got the CB Hoops Spur Practice Fall League. It's back again. So it's 7 days of nonstop content. And if you like high-level basketball, we got Central, we got Carver, we got every team you can think of high school-wise for these players. This is basically like them getting ready for the season. Obviously, these are exhibition games, but that's 4 weeks of regular season, which is like a round robin. Everybody plays everyone. Then they do standings, and the last 2 weeks are playoffs and then the championship. Cannot wait, Richard, to be there for that. I will be there on this Sunday. Richard, you'll be out of town for this one. Honestly, Richard, you'll be out of town for the first couple, so you won't be able to do it probably close until the playoff time. But excited to be back at the CB Hoops Prep Practice Fall League. Chris Gates will be there with me. We're going to do a few games each day leading up to the playoffs, and then we'll do all games once the playoffs start. It starts September the 8th, and the championship Sunday is October 13th. Any other final thoughts, Richard?
Another great show here on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. And I do want to say something. I really enjoyed your unsolicited hot take.
That's
show.
coming on Wednesday again.
And I know you didn't mention that. But,
I was wrong about some teams.
that was-
LSU, Jesus, disappointment. We'll talk about
Look,
that. And
with
more.
college football, I cannot wait to hear that because, I mean, we had Georgia getting a big win over Clemson.
Yep.
I mean, Alabama and Auburn dominated. I mean, it's going to be a great show, and I'm looking forward to that as well.
Yeah, maybe Richard, he may be a special guest this Wednesday. Give us some of his hot takes. Remember, he's the one that said Alabama was going 6-6 last year, so he's all about outrageous hot takes. Well, thank you to our producer, Chrissy Gates. Thank you to everyone that tunes in. Thank you for the support that we have within the community, and we're going to keep doing what we do here on Georgia Alabama Sports Live. Make sure to go like us on Facebook, subscribe on YouTube. We'll see you next time on the Georgia Alabama Sports Live show.